Welcome, Johnny Beirne. How are you?
I'm fantastic, guys, and all the better for seeing you guys.
Where are you calling in from? I detect an accent of some kind. Where would that be?
Yes,
from?
indeed. I am in the west of Ireland, Beirne, and all that good stuff.
Fantastic. I was going to say Jersey Shore, but that wasn't going to work.
That wasn't right. And is it? I mean, we think of Ireland as green, Johnny, but here in Chicago, it has just been gray for like 10 days straight. Like, is Ireland still green, or is it also gray?
It's white at the moment. We've had sub-zero Celsius temperatures, -7, 8, 10, in some places 10. So wow. I remember being in Chicago for St. Patrick's Day, and it was pretty cold, I'll tell you. There was like a foot of snow, so it was lovely, though. It was lovely.
You know, Chicago is known for being a really nice Irish city. Boston, Chicago. It's St. Patrick's Day in Chicago is pretty wild. So it's nice to have a real representative who visited over St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah, I actually ended up in the parade, so it was great. The main parade.
Oh, nice.
Did you get to see the Green River?
I absolutely did. I nearly tripped looking down at it. But yeah, it was great. We were handing out flyers and for an event I was involved in later on that day. So it was good fun.
Nice.
I would encourage the listeners, if you don't know what we're talking about, just Google the Chicago River St. Patrick's Day. You'll get to see a river that it's not really green year round, but it's kind of green. But on St. Patrick's Day, they put this orange chemical in the water and it turns a bright green. It's absolutely gorgeous and it's a lot of fun. So make sure you Google that, because I think it'll be a really interesting experience for your listeners.
Yeah, there's a time and motion video of the barge going up and down, and the river just starts to get greener and greener, and it's cool.
It's quite the festivity. So Johnny, good to chat with you. Johnny and I had a call a little bit earlier than this podcast. So what he does is really cool, and we want to be sure that I know a lot of you are listening on your favorite device. Johnny is a phenomenal presenter. He has all kinds of great tools to liven up Zoom presentations, and we're going to dig into that today. Yeah. But Johnny, before we get going, just love to hear, what are you excited about right now? Personal life, business life? What's making you really excited right now?
Yeah, I guess from a business perspective, getting a lot of interest in the presentation skills that you mentioned, and some cheap and cheerful tools and technologies that people can use to avoid death by PowerPoint when they're presenting live and boring the pants off people. And people are kind of zoomed out as well. So because of COVID and the pandemic and so on and so forth. And they say that 60% of webinar attendees leave before the end. So we got to up our game. We got to entertain a little. We got to, do pattern interrupt, which we'll talk about later, and just keep them excited and engaged so they stay to the end, no matter what we're doing. If we're talking at a virtual summit, if we're presenting a workshop, if we're creating a course, if we're doing a webinar. So I'm really excited about that and where the technology will take us. My book is coming out in February called Say It Once, Sell It Often, which is all about creating online courses. So I'm pretty excited about that as well. Personally, doing a lot of energy work and dealing with self-limiting beliefs and my relationship with money and programming as a kid from teachers. And so doing a lot of spiritual stuff. I do my yoga every day at 6 a.m. or thereabouts. And so, yeah, lots going on. Really, really exciting times.
So yoga, what kind of yoga do you do?
I do inner engineering. It was developed by a guy called Sadhguru. I'm not sure if you've heard of him, but the book is called Inner Engineering. It's a New York Times bestseller. So I did his program over a weekend, and then you do it twice a day for 40 days. And if you miss a day, you got to start again. And then you do it once a day for 6 months. And people are like, and what happens after 6 months? Well, what happens is if you've been doing it twice a day for 40 days and once a day for 6 months, it's like putting on your shoes in the morning. It's just part of who you are. So it's powerful stuff. It's really good for physical mobility, but also for just relaxing and building core strength and having more certainty in the system, and which is all part of helping you present more as well, you know.
Sure.
What led you to that?
So I've always been interested in, I guess, energy and spirituality and things outside the regular day-to-day human being sort of thing. And so a close friend of mine who referred me to another program, which I did a couple of years before that, unrelated, but profound transformations within it. So it was pretty much anything he said after that I was going to do. So he said, you should follow Sadhguru on YouTube, and then you can actually do the program in Dublin, which he had done. And so I just jumped on the opportunity to do it. And I haven't looked back since. And when I do look back, I can nearly rotate my head the whole way around.
Wow.
Now that's a good way to capture somebody's attention in a presentation.
I'd like to see that on a Zoom call.
I know, but the flexibility has definitely improved. And as I say, it's for my future self when, because it's not that it's too late to start anytime, but you know, if you're not able to stretch, trying to do it when you're 70 or 80, it's a bit more difficult. So if you can do it now every day, if you look at Springsteen on stage, he puts that down to yoga. If you look at Ryan Giggs, who played for Man United in the UK, he played well into his 30s yoga. So lots of people put how they are down to yoga.
Love that. Well, and then 2 years ago, I bought a yoga mat and yoga blocks, and they've still are in my closet. So I had really good intentions.
Are they holding up your windsurfing board? And
pretty much.
Bike?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. They're in my closet, they're in my pantry closet, waiting, taunting me like, oh, hey, yoga guy, when are you going to start me? When are you going to start this stuff?
Well, maybe this is your
this might
opportunity.
Be the call. Yes.
Yeah, the teacher shows up when the student is ready. So today could be the day.
Delay.
Johnny, it's really interesting. The topic, what you brought up in terms of money beliefs and things like that, it comes up so often on this podcast. I guess we're attracting those folks.
Sure.
Would you mind sharing kind of your journey with that? We've done that with other guests. Brandon and I have talked about that a little bit. Just love to kind of hear, because this is a common thing with entrepreneurs that we are dealing with. Just love to hear kind of your story, your journey around it, and what you maybe discovered about yourself.
Yeah, I guess a few things. One would be, you know, my dad was a coal miner. He died at the age of 55 back in 2000. So what he did with his time in exchange for money was pretty harsh. I mean, good money, but difficult work, right?
Right.
You know, the conditions were tough. He'd pretty much walk in until he had to hunch down. Then he'd go down on his hands and knees, and eventually he'd end up lying on his side in cold water, just shoveling for like hours on end. So I didn't realize it at the time, but that gave me, I guess subconsciously, because I talk about freedom and how you can have freedom if you have a passive income, and if you create an online course, you can stop exchanging time for money. So that had a profound effect, more so now when I look back rather than at the time, of what he did with his time in exchange for money. And I often think that my kids in the future might look at us and go, you mean you got in your car and you drove somewhere to give a course? Like, how crazy would so? And that might be hard for us to kind of think that they might think like that in the future, but they very much may. So I guess there was that, and then there was a certain amount of scarcity. I'm not going to say like we walked around in our bare feet or anything like that. So there was definitely a kind of a scarcity. So therefore you had to kind of, you know, if you come from a scarcity mindset, then you don't attract abundance, whether you realize it or not. And then, of course, you know, it's kind of an Irish thing, but I'm sure it happens around the world too, of like neighbors going, you know, if you've got the flash car, the neighbors are like, who does he think he is? So you kind of get rid of the flash car, you know, so kind of begrudgery and kind of, you know, we want to keep up with the Joneses, but the Joneses are kind of, anyway, so it's kind
the Joneses
you know,
don't want anybody else breaking off from the pack.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So it's jealousy and stuff like that. So all of that kind of thing, and of course, then money is the root of all evil and all this kind of stuff. So whether we know it or not, we've got this programming going on. So if we do get it, we tend to get rid of it, or we don't even attract it in the first place.
Yeah.
And it's just self-limiting beliefs, self-sabotage, all that kind of stuff can be going on. Yeah, and a lot of people don't know what's going on, and then they don't know why they're not successful. And if you talk to them about self-limiting beliefs and self-sabotage, and it's actually programming from when you were a kid, they're like, no, that's woo-woo. There's no way that could be true. So I'll just keep going the way I'm going, and wondering why people around them are successful. So
I think if you look at, common shows and media, look at how wealthy people are portrayed. They're portrayed as assholes. These characters are ruthless, mean, jerks. And so that programming kicks in. Well, it's like, well, I don't want to be a useless, mean asshole jerk guy.
Yeah.
But so we get all these, I hear you, all these conflicting beliefs that battle inside of our heads.
And the other,
go ahead.
Sorry.
No.
I was just going to say that when we think that money buys us happiness, and then we realize it doesn't, and we want more, what we really need is fulfillment. So if you look again, I mentioned Springsteen, or if you look at Bono, or if you look at rich, successful people who have a fulfilling life, they're still alive. Whereas if you look at, people like, what year was it that we lost Prince and a ton of others who, from drug addictions and stuff like that, because they were depressed from success, because they weren't fulfilled by it. They were looking for the next thing. Whereas Bono is doing his, like him or not, he's doing his humanitarian work. And Bruce is quite fulfilled by his own spirituality, and always remained humble and surrounded himself by lots of great friends. And if you watch the making of the last album, it's homage to all his friends. So he never lost his roots. So I think, there's a whole other thing going on there when people have financial success. Like I love the saying that if you're mean, money is going to make you meaner. And if you're nice, money is going to make you nicer, because you're just going to give it away. So whatever you are right now, money's just an enabler and an amplifier of who you are. So be careful.
Yeah. What's been most useful resource that you've come across that's helped you deal with some of these things and come to some of these conclusions?
Yeah, I guess it's really been a combination of, really, like you mentioned, you're attracting an audience who have similar challenges, or this conversation has come up. And I suppose if we realize it consciously or subconsciously that we have these challenges, we are going to attract either books or podcasts or people or courses into our life. So I guess over time there's been a mishmash of people, books, podcasts. But I'd like to think I'm tuned into, like I was mentioning earlier, the fact that there is something greater than ourselves, like our spirit, our soul, our higher selves, if we can tune into that. So I mean, the yoga's been fantastic. I did landmark education a couple of years before that. I did landmark form. I did the advanced. And there's some really interesting, we make a decision as a kid based on something somebody said, and then we live out that story, but the story isn't true. And it happens 3 times in our lives, from 3 to 6, kind of 10 to 12, and then early teens. And we live out that's our story, but it's not. And our parents are not our story, and our upbringing is not our story. I mean, I can bring an elephant into the room here. It's a far cry from what my dad did as a coal miner. And he was just when I say just my dad, it's just one generation ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we don't have to be where we came from. We don't have to be, maybe we want to be what our parents are, if they are what we want them to be. But If they're not, we don't have to be them either. But people are living out, oh, it's the way it is. It's to do with where I come from. Like I'm in a brought up in a coal mining village, a couple of hundred people, and some of my clients are New York Times top 10 bestsellers. I don't say that to brag. I say it's possible. But if I focused on, oh, well, I could never do it based on who I am, where I'm from, my upbringing, my parents, etc., I wouldn't be talking to you guys today. So
yeah.
So in your journey, do you have a story for us that kind of validated? So, you know, I know doing this work, been doing some of this work myself, and Bob has as well. And, you know, you always want to know, is this real and is this working? And am I attracting versus, you know, scarcity versus abundance? Do you have a story for us where that kind of manifested for you, maybe in work or personal life, where you saw these principles put into, you know, they were actually happening for you?
Yeah, I manifested having an online music business, being in the music industry, being on national radio, hosting a festival, just being involved, meeting new up and coming singer-songwriters and bands, and that all happened because I just had an innate desire, I would say, more so than a belief, but I guess they're closely related in terms of manifestation. And it all happened. We became the biggest independent seller of music in Ireland and the UK. You could buy a song with a text message back in 2006, pre-Spotify, and then Spotify came along and ate our lunch. But we helped, I think, 12 or 14 bands get into the top 40 that never would have done it with physical sales. I had a public speaking website because I just love going to conferences, and I've learned a lot from great public speakers. So I set up a public speaking business because outside the household names, it was very hard to find a public speaker who may not be a household name, but could have a really profound message. So I set up a website called Speakific, which was where you could find a specific speaker for a specific event. It was like a dating website. It was like Match.com for speakers and event organizers, right? Nice, you look at the profile and you swipe right, I'm booking that speaker. Nice. So that was bought by a Belgian company. So that was good fun as well. So I've been trying internet startups for a couple of years now.
So was music the kind of bridge that, I mean, kind of going back then to your days in school, high school, looking forward to what you were going to do when you grew up type of thing. I mean, was music kind of your outlet? Or, I mean, did your dad expect you to go into coal mining? Tell us about how that all transpired.
Yeah, I guess dad was what we would call a background dad. So I think my desire to go to college, because I was the only one of 5 who did. Now my brothers and sisters did got different qualifications in different ways, but in terms of formal third level going to college, but that was based on my peers. They were going, so I was going. Okay. 2 or 3 people because their older brothers and sisters had gone to college. So my closest and dearest friend, all his brothers and sisters went to college. So I went because they were going. But even in before college, music was just part of our lives. It was just, you know, we always had music on. So whatever that came from, and I still love music very much today. So it was really to be on the guest lists of certain gigs. It was like not from an ego perspective, but just to be going to gigs and people knowing who you are and thanking you for setting up this website that allowed them to sell their music by text message because kids didn't have credit cards. It was just amazing. So, and we had no business plan. Like we thought we'd make a couple of cents per single, and sell 1 trillion singles, and then we'd be on the way to being millionaires, right?
Yeah, but, like millionaires, right?
Yeah. So we did the Field of Dreams. We built it, and then they came. So what happened was, we ended up being involved in a TV show. Like, you know when you vote for a band with a text message?
Yeah, I mean, American Idol, shows like that.
Yeah,
you text, you call. Okay,
exactly. So we were very close to talking to Simon Cowell, which just materialized. But in the TV show that we were involved in, they wanted our technology because when you voted for the band, you got the song, whether the band won the show or not.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
So the band got into the charts because there were so many votes, but if they didn't win the entire thing, didn't get through to the final, they sold a shitload of singles, which got them into the charts because the vote got you the song and the vote for the same price. And I think the final of American Idol or Pop Idol, they would have sold 500,000 singles for one act.
Easily.
So if they had used our technology, the audience would have been voting, because it still cost $1 to vote, but you got nothing. You got nothing, only I'm going to back Adam Lambert, who went on and headlined with Queen, or became the front person of Queen. But he didn't get diddly out of it because the sales were going to Apple, and the single was going to Sony with Simon Cowell. So yeah, it was good fun. It was good fun.
Oh, wow.
Interesting.
Like, I didn't even know that about you. That's fantastic. Now, like, were you yourself a musician or just a lover of music?
Just obsessed with music. Yeah. I think, my guitar and Brandon's yoga mat have a lot in common. They're in the corner, and then someday maybe, but.
Well, so Brandon hangs his guitar on the wall that I always tease him about.
That's my son's. Yeah, that's my son's guitar.
It makes him look cool on Zoom calls.
Well, I know. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. He hasn't picked it up in a while either.
Brandon has way more swagger than I do. That's
trying.
He knows how
I've got an air guitar. I've got an air guitar on my wall.
Yeah. Well, that's fascinating. So, started a couple businesses, sold some technology. That's fantastic. So, kind of what led you to what you're doing now, which is really cool. And again, you need to look at some of the clips, because one of the reasons that Johnny is talking to us is he's got this really cool way to liven up presentations, and he's got a green screen, he's got effects and all these things, which we're jealous of. But how did you get into that?
Yeah, so after trying to be a consultant after college, which I wasn't even sure what a consultant was. And then I put the label, I'm a management consultant, even though I've not really managed much. So social media was kicking off, and I thought, this is pretty cool. So I got in early on social media, and I think MySpace, then Bebo, then probably Twitter, then kind of Facebook around the same time. But nobody knew, particularly in business, what it was all about. So I started to learn about it and started to give courses on it. And then I realized that you couldn't scale, right? You just driving around the country. Did I crack this silly joke with this group, or was that the group yesterday? And this just relentless repetition. And then, of course, everybody became a social media guru pretty quickly. So the rates went down. I started, not getting all the business I was getting, and competition is fine. So I went to a conference in London, and all the speakers were creating digital products, online courses. And I said, this is the life for me. So I came back and I started learning about how to create, market, and sell and launch online courses. And I fell in love with all of that. So I stopped doing social media. I still use it, but I don't teach it.
Okay.
I learned so much about course creation over a decade now, that I started to teach how to create online courses. So I started creating courses about creating courses. So that was the start of it. And then fast forward a little bit, I started to share how I was kind of using this technology to effortlessly transition into my slides when I'm training, and disappear, and then go on to the next slide, and so on and so forth, and then reappear and say, is this making sense? And I was just using this to record professional courses faster. But when COVID kicked in, I started to share how you could use this to deliver courses live. And it just took off. It's like, I want to stop death by PowerPoint. I don't want to have to fumble around with the mouse when I'm sharing my slides and go, can you see my screen, and all this kind of stuff. So I started to share how I was using like the Stream Deck. For those who are listening, check out the video clip, but the little Stream Deck, some software, and you can buzz around the place. You can turn up here, you can turn up there. And all it is a green screen with the lighting set up correctly, and you can transform your background, and then you have fun with, as I say, I use this in context to say, let's address the elephant in the room, and I bring an elephant into the room, or I just freak people out with pattern interrupt when I walk by the window waving at myself. So, and really what I teach people now is essentially pattern interrupt, which is stop boring the pants off people with your presentations and your webinars. People need to see something on the screen every couple of seconds almost. So I just say, after 3 or 4 or 5 seconds, do something. Okay. And the Stream Deck, which is $150 and some inexpensive software, can actually transform how you turn up. Like you can even, I think I have it open here. If I come out of the presentation, for example, you can have your whiteboard on the screen as well. So again, it's about pattern interrupt is really stopping people from being bored. They've got attention deficit already. They've got a smart device within inches of their hand.
Right.
They're already online, so they could have a browser open. And they say in public speaking, you have to keep their attention, but online you have to stop them being bored. And it's similar, but there's a profound difference. So even with the whiteboard, if people say, Johnny, I'm not getting it, or whatever, you can just pop over to a whiteboard and start drawing out maybe where the lights are set up or whatever, and you can pop in and say, is this making sense? And they go like, I got it now. So even if they should be getting it, but being able to go from PowerPoint to a whiteboard or a website or whatever without messing around with the mouse and sharing screens, that's what people love about this.
It's really cool. And go ahead, BB.
I was just going to ask, so I'm curious, and tell us about the current state of the union regarding webinars and online. So, we've been in this space for a while. We've seen webinars kind of kind of fizzle out. People kind of know what's going on and happening. What's your take on, are they still relevant? Is it more how you do them, whether you should do them? What's kind of your take on it? What's your observation?
Yeah, the market has definitely matured to this is going to be a sales fest. Okay. So there's definitely an element of that. However, if your webinar, which it always should and continue to do, is solve a problem, then people will register, okay? The numbers are down because people are zoomed out, not because webinars are bad. It's just, if I have to go and watch another thing online after COVID, or if I have to go on to another Zoom, because they've been on Zoom all day.
Yes.
Right.
Like webinars were refreshing when you weren't online all
Good
day.
point.
Now when you're online all day, not another online meeting / webinar. However, when they do address a real problem, they are the best sales tool in town. I know the attendance is down a little and the sales are down a little, and that's why Evergreen is proving a little bit more popular, particularly if people, live is still better, but if people have a real pain, a real itch to scratch, for example, 60% of people don't stay to the end of a webinar, I can help you decrease that number, they'll watch it. Or how to stop looking fuzzy with a green screen. Like if you address a real specific pain for people, and in 60 minutes or less, you can show them how to solve that problem. And of course you have an offer at the end in most cases. Then buyers will buy, and those who give out about being sold to were never going to buy. They're like, how dare you give me this valuable free content for 60 minutes and then ask me for some money? How dare you, But they were never going to buy. They're not willing to admit they don't have the money. They're not willing to admit if they have the money, they don't have the discipline to buy the course and implement it. They don't have the discipline to admit the fact that they feel they should know this already and feel dumb, but they're not going to say that either. So you'll always have people who go, how dare you? And then you'll thankfully have a percentage, which ideally would be 10, 15, 20% of your attendees will buy, because you're going to solve a real problem. And the problem you're typically going to solve is time. You're going to fast forward them to where they want to be.
Okay.
And, it might be money, it might be love and connection, it might be spirituality, it might be how to run a podcast. The information's available, okay? What you're providing is a systematic approach based on experience that's going to fast track them to where they want to be in a 2-3 hour course. Like people back in the day used to say to me, how do you compete with YouTube? I'm like, YouTube's full of videos, not courses. Like, and if you don't know what to put in, if you don't know what you don't know what to look for in YouTube. Like if you don't know what a green screen is, let's say, you're not going to put into YouTube how to use a green screen because you don't know what it is in the first place.
Okay.
So I think it was Van Gogh that said computers are stupid. They only give us answers. And the quality of our life and the quality of doing business sometimes is the quality of the question you ask.
Agreed.
So webinars definitely I think back in the day, the man or woman on a yacht with the Lamborghini on the yacht beside the helicopter on the yacht. You too can have all of this. Just watch my webinar and buy my program.
Yeah.
So that kind of stuff, there's still a hangover from that, so to speak. But for the most part, there's some really, really valuable webinars out there. And at the end, you just make your offer, and it's not a sale. It's an invitation to work together. And some will and some won't.
What's the trend that you're seeing in course content? So, what we've been used to kind of growing up in this industry was you buy a course, they send you a big box of stuff. The mailman, wrenches his back, dropping it off on your doorstep. And then that went online and people still shoved all that stuff online. From my perspective, one of the things that I'm seeing is shorter form courses, more focused. Is that kind of what you're seeing too, Johnny?
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of simply break it up into either competence or career. And what I mean by that is that if you want to learn how to use a green screen so that you can just improve how you turn up, that's a competence course. You want to improve your own competence and ability to use a green screen. And that can be done in 30, 60, 90-minute course. The right lighting, the right setup, how to make your own backgrounds, how to use the Stream Deck, how to use Pattern Interrupt. Whereas a career course, if you want to go from being that postman to an app developer, you're probably going to have to do a series of longer courses because you're actually making a profound change in your career. And you're not going to learn that in 90 minutes. So there are what I call competence courses or just-in-time learning. I just want to learn something just in time to be able to have it set up for when I need it. And that's just improving your own competence. And they are related. And the career ones are longer. You might have to do a series of courses.
Sure. You
might have to do an introduction to app development, intermediate and advanced. And you might have to do a number of them from different people.
Like a curriculum.
And eventually...
like a college curriculum, essentially, right?
Exactly, but you're still going to get an education, and if you complete the course and you're good at it, a career. But you're going to get it in weeks rather than 4 or 5 years and a big bill.
Sure.
But in general, short and to the point is the way to go. 60, 90 minutes. If you've got a big course, then break it up. And I do advise people to try and have that $1,000 signature course. Even when you're starting out, just put a line in the sand and say, right, my signature course is going to be podcasts for beginners. So that's my signature course, going to be $1,000, and it is going to be worth $100,000. So, but as my first time to be a course creator, I'm going to take a step back and I'm going to go, right, what would be in a course like that? Okay, gear. So I'm going to do a course on great gear for podcasting. And it's a shorter course that when people buy the signature, they get it. But if they just want the gear part, they can buy it too. So I'll give you an example, pretty much my own example. I've got a course called Presentation Transformation. It will show you exactly how to do what I'm doing right now. However, for certain people, all they want right now is to improve how they show up. They want to make direct eye contact, maybe a teleprompter. What lights do I buy? What microphone? Do I sit? Do I stand? And that's simple studio setup at $295, let's say. But when you buy Presentation Transformation, it's part of the curriculum. But I didn't have to make the big, overwhelming signature course right out of the box. And there are some people go, oh, I know how to do pattern interrupt. I just want the studio stuff. But suddenly when they buy the studio stuff, they start to realize, hey, this guy kind of knows what he's talking about. I think I'll buy his next course. So you have simple studio setup, you have green screen secrets, you've got all these kind of, because we've got to, when we're starting out as course creators, we've got to mature into being able to, and it's back to our relationship with money. Sometimes when we create our first course, we're like, I don't think I could get away with charging $1,000, self-limiting beliefs, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So it's a lot easier to go, okay, but my advice to you is, if you've got a signature course called Podcast for Professionals or How to Make $1 Million with a Podcast, what would be the sections? And make one of the sections a course in its own right. And when people buy the big one, they get it. But if people only want that one, they can buy it too.
Okay. I like
so
that.
I've got a few courses that make up the signature program, but I never had to make the signature program out of the box.
Great strategy. I have a question for you. So you have a degree in quality management from Sligo IT. Just curious, this is a little bit of a right turn here, but what did that degree do for you that applies to your entrepreneurial journey? What were some things, most of us, we got a degree in this and we went that way, right? Tell me about you. Tell me about that. What was a benefit? What were some things that helped benefited your entrepreneur journey there?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I can actually, even though I did exactly that, I got a degree that would typically have put me this way and I went the other way. However, I can tread the whole thing right back. So I got a degree, got a job in Ericsson, which is a telco company, like your Sony, your Nokia. Well, no more Nokia really, but a big, massive company in 103 countries. But I got into that job, into the process management department, which was really the quality department. They call it process management. Got in there, and this was 1996, where there was probably 4 websites on the internet, right? So you read every page and you clicked on every link, right? So, but I was just fascinated by the internet. They were using the internet the same as we're using cameras right now. Ericsson just, they were a telco company. And I was just really, really fascinated. And there was a guy in the department who was into coding as well. And I asked him one day over the show, I said, what are you doing? Oh, I said, I'm making a little website. What? Yeah, look, you can see it online. It's www.myfirstwebsite.com or whatever it was. And I'm like, you're actually coding that up? I'm like, yeah. He says, it's really easy. You put this tag at the beginning and / the tag at the end and say hello world. And I was like, this is unbelievable. So I know it's hard to grasp.
I discovered
now,
fire.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And a wheel at the same time. So it was just amazing. So that was the start of launching Internet Start, was even back in 1996. So yeah, from there, I just got more into internet companies and less into quality management. Started building websites, starting selling that as a service. Hey, I can build you a website. It'll look like you know what, but hey, it's better than the one you don't have. And there's only 10 websites in the world anyway. So yeah, so got into it that way. And then got into social media as a natural progression, and then started to teach social media.
Cool. What have been some of your biggest challenges, Johnny, in terms of being an entrepreneur and running a business? What have you found challenging? And, if you have a particular story about a situation that might be instructful to people, we'd love to hear it.
Yeah, I suppose thinking that you have to do everything,
Yeah.
you know, and nobody can do it as good as you. You know, I founded this company, and we all know stories of people who got excused from their business. I know Steve Jobs got back in, but you know, different people were excused because there comes a time when it becomes bigger than yourself. But even I'm a far cry from that. But yeah, I mean, having to do everything yourself. And getting away from it, like you are your own boss, so you sleep with the boss, you eat with the boss, you know, and it's the only thing you can't sleep your way to the top. Anyway, so you just need to compartmentalize life, work, family, the things that matter as much as you possibly can, and surround yourself, as it's often said, by ideally people that are smarter than you. You really got to drop the ego a little bit. Just because you came up with the idea doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to execute it the way it should be executed in the right way. So yeah, I mean, you can subcontract these days. You can get virtual assistants. You can hire bookkeepers. You know, do not try and do everything, and stick to your passion for sure.
What did that look like for you? What specifically, like, it's really good advice. When did it become real for you? Did you miss an order? Did you kind of have a little bit of a breakdown? Like, how did you how did you come to the conclusion, like, oh, I can't do this all myself, I need to hire it out?
Yeah, so and a couple of those things. So yeah, stress would be one. Definitely. And just long hours for, not much reward, relatively speaking. Whereas if you subbed it, like we think that if there's not a bill for it, we're better doing it. Like if we can do it, it's free. That's the mistake. Yeah. If we can do it, it's free.
Okay.
And it is because there's no bill for it. However, if you're worth $50 an hour and you can get somebody for $5, even if you think you don't have the $5 to pay the person, you're losing the 50, and then it's just a lot of that kind of trying to do everything. Stuff will fall between the cracks. It will put pressure on your health. It will put pressure, and as it did with mine, on relationships. And you kind of build up this story that I'm the only one that can do it. It won't be done right unless I do it. That's all bullshit. You could lose the business on the back of that kind of self-righteous, kind of egotistical kind of thinking, and there's, so much opportunity now to find people who will love to do the tasks that you don't love to do.
Yeah.
That's with Upwork.com and other ways of getting virtual assistants. And people say to me, oh, you're exploiting people in low cost economies. Excuse me, I'm paying them more than what they would be. Like, I remember hiring a lady abroad, and she has a master's in business. And I asked her, I said, where you live with that master's, if you were able to get a job, which she couldn't, how much would you be paid? She said about $250 US a month. And I was paying her $5 an hour. So who's being exploited? Like, it's just, we give bonuses, we treat them well, we meet them on Zoom, we make sure that it aligns with their values, we make sure that we make it as enjoyable as possible. We WhatsApp pictures of, look at the weather in Ireland. We try and treat them as they should be. People, not to be exploited just because they're $2 an hour or $3 or $4 an hour. So that's just a quick story on that might help people out if they haven't considered hiring some virtual assistants.
Yeah.
Love that. Love it. Well, what where can people find you? What can they tell us about? Is it johnnybeirne.com? And if they go there, what are they going to find? Tell us a little bit about you and how you can help.
Exactly. People. Yeah. So johnnybeirne.com is the website, and you'll find me on LinkedIn as well. And we're going to include a link in the show notes to a resource which is going to help you get started on the road to what we mentioned, which is pattern interrupt. the ability just to keep people engaged. And if they're engaged and they're entertained and they're being educated, they're more likely to buy, they're more likely to stay on to the end. So I've got a couple of resources there. I've got an equipment list. You don't have to use what I use. But if you don't have anything, you might as well use what I use, because at least you can reach out to me. You know, and it's not expensive. People are like, Johnny, you must have like a camera person there. You're buzzing around the place. And I say, no, this camera and this camera and this scene, it's all the one camera. And this is the second camera to be able to show people behind the scenes, like a $50 drawing board, and you've got a digital whiteboard to share with people. So all of that is in the resources. There's a guide that people can read, but I've got an interactive version of the guide. So as you're reading it, you can ask me questions. So that's available, cool. and a link will be in the show notes as well.
Perfect.
Very cool. Well, we want to give you one last question, Johnny, and this is, we like to ask our guests this. We're going to give you the floor for 60 seconds. It's a 60-second rant. So it could be something in the business world, something in the personal world, something that happened in the past week that you just want to get off your chest. This is your opportunity, because we know that when you get it off your chest, that person that irritated you is going to hear it. You're going to feel better, and the world will be a better place. So the platform is yours, Johnny.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if the person will hear it, but yeah, I got a phone call about 2 weeks ago from a training company who had seen my work and go, we want you to do a piece of work for us. It's been paid for by Facebook, and it needs to be done and dusted in the next 2 weeks, money in your bank account. And I'm like, wow, great. Wasn't expecting that. And she's, yeah, it's a sizable piece of work. It's 20 grand, right? And I could do it in about 4 or 5 days if I put my mind to it. So this is great, you know, and send your bank account details. Now, the only caveat is it's public funding through Facebook with a grant, and we got to get a couple of quotations. And I'm like, being the helpful person that I am, I'm like, I can get you a couple of names. I let them know that, you know, I've got this gig, and we do this kind of thing sometimes. But as it happens, they gave it to somebody else on the list.
Oh.
Oh.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Ow.
Ouch. Yeah. But I'm smiling.
You are. And you.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't see my hands though. I know I am. I'm smiling. I'm like,
yeah, it burns us because we've all been there. We've all been burned like that before. So, keep being a good person, Johnny.
Yeah.
That doesn't don't consider that a punishment. That happens, and it sucks that it happens. But thanks for sharing that. Yeah, that's those kinds of stories. You kind of like, I wish that didn't happen. But
yeah, well, the lesson is, as I was sharing with one of my colleagues, until you can put in your card into the ATM and take out the money, it ain't yours until you can see it in your bank. So
so true.
So yeah, that was but hey, you know,
so true.
It's all good. Well, Johnny, thanks for taking time out of your day. I know it's later in the day in Ireland. Thank you so much for sharing your gifts with us, your stories. And I'm sure people are going to be entertained by some of the clips. If you're listening to this again, check out the show and yeah, see, there he is walking fast. So you got to see that. So
yeah,
hey, thanks again.
Fun, Bob. We
got the new studio if we want to do that too. Yeah.
Yeah, Brandon wants the toys.
Oh yeah,
that's what he needs.
Yep, need more toys.
Yeah. Do you do sound effects too, Johnny? Does your tool do sound effects?
Yeah, sometimes we bring in music for the longer events with like countdown timers during longer events and stuff like that. And just, you know, like for longer events, what happens is people are like, okay, we're going on a break.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you got to kind of get them all excited after the break again. So at least I know they can mute the music, but you could have anything playing. You could have a little infomercial. You could have, in another one, I have an animated version of me dancing.
Perfect.
Over and back on the countdown timer. And also when they glance, they go, hey, we're back in 2 minutes. You know, it's like, I really try and emulate an offline event.
Which
in
is
an
what they
online
do
world.
during breaks. They have a timer on the screen. They're playing music. They're keeping the energy high.
Yeah, or
You
the
know.
MC is going, okay, guys, take your seats. Something is going on. And I'm like, we can do that online so easy, even better.
We just need to get Brandon that little switchboard that you have so that he can have a snare drum.
Yeah.
You know, when he makes a joke, a cymbal to like, we just, that's kind of so.
We do fake laughter too, like canned laughter.
Oh, that's
ooh and ah, like when I say something smart, which is extremely rare, like an ooh or an ah, that'd be kind of nice.
Yeah.
You could have all those.
Right.
All those. Or a tumbleweed. A tumbleweed if there's no reaction. Just get the tumbleweed.
Yeah.
Crickets.
So it's one of our goals in the new year to amp up our production game. So we're going to avail ourselves of your resources to figure out how to do that. So, but again, hey Johnny, thanks again.
Thank you, Johnny.
It's always a pleasure, and we'll best wishes in the new year, and we look forward to chatting soon.
Thanks a million, and happy holidays to you all.